and welcome to episode 3 of The Wright Reasons.
Welcome.
We are so excited to be here with you, whether you are here with us live on YouTube or catching the recording as a podcast or even on YouTube as a recording. We are so grateful that you're here. It really, we can sit around and talk about the show all day, but really what makes it special for us is that you're here listening and interacting. Yeah, otherwise, why?
Right. And we do talk about it all day, but this, I feel like, is a more effective use of our time discussing the show.
I mean, we hope it's more effective. So if you're here with us, please let us know by leaving a comment below and liking this video. And if you're listening to this via podcast, do us a favor, take a screenshot and tag us. On Instagram, we are at The Wright Reasons. We would love to know that you're listening, what your takeaways are, and if you have any questions, because I know after last week's episode, we actually got a lot of questions from you guys, and it was really cool to engage in this discussion about these people who put their lives out there for all of us to talk about with you guys. So let us know all of those things.
All those things.
Oh, okay. So you want to first go over what we're going to talk about today?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to get into the first dating scenarios of The Bachelor this season. Colton has 2 group dates and then one one-on-one date. And we're going to get into everything they do and what that is and why and the shit show that it is.
Yeah, I think that, the first episode, the limo entrance night, it's such a shit show. And it's really difficult because we don't know their names yet. We don't know anything about them really besides their fake occupation that they give them and then how they present themselves doing a gimmick. So it's really hard to comment.
You mean that Cinderella's not an occupation?
I mean, for some people,
weird.
I guess it is.
So weird.
But we really want to make sure that we dive in, and today's the day. We're also going to be talking about a little bit of mental health stuff that appeared last night on the show.
Kind of popped in.
Yeah, it snuck in and kind of bitch slapped us, for lack of a better word. It's true. Yep. It did.
Yep.
And finally, then we're going to talk about what we're personally each looking forward to and what our predictions are for the season. So again, we are not reading spoilers. We are taking very, very big precautions to not be spoiled. So we reserve the right to change our minds throughout the season. And we also acknowledge that the show is edited. So we are going off again of what we are seeing as viewers, just like you. We don't have any inside information or anything like that.
That is one thing that happened to show up, I think, in this episode particularly, is the first time you can really see producer editing and meddling with the way the show is done. There are some things that, how is there a cameraman exactly in the one place to catch this person's thing? There starts to be a little bit of the, mystical hand behind the curtain moving things around, which we'll get into in this episode. But without further ado, I think we're ready to get into it.
I'm so ready. As usual, we took notes on our phones.
I have so many notes.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So we're going to go through and try to do this sequentially and just kind of discuss a lot of things. I know that we have some topics that might turn into their own episodes of discussion just because it's going to take longer, but let's do this.
Well, so here's my hot take in the entire episode, really quickly.
Ooh, hot take.
I'm surprised at, this all goes back to how we were talking about Colton last year when it was announced that he was going to be the Bachelor. I thought he was going to be a train wreck from day one. I thought it was going to be a goddamn nightmare for him. I'm pleasantly surprised. I think he's handling himself quite well as the Bachelor. He's very clearly nervous, but happens to be incredibly vulnerable at the same time.
Yeah.
He's going out of his way to show the women that he's an emotional person. And that shows up, I think, 4 times in tonight's episode, or last night's, whatever, the episode we're talking about, episode 3. 2? Episode 2.
Episode 2.
This is episode 3 of our show.
Yes.
It's episode 2 of the actual thing we're reviewing.
That's confusing.
Not enough coffee today. But I'm pleasantly surprised at Colton's behavior as a Bachelor. I think he's doing a pretty good job for the beginning of the show.
Yeah, I will say, as someone who, I know I was definitely one of those people who thought, I don't know if he's emotionally ready for this. And I think that we were all a bit scarred by Ari, if I'm being honest. He was so, and no judgment, Ari, at all, but
Well, judgment.
Sure. Not from me. No judgment from me. The way that Ari went about the whole season was so he didn't want to make waves, and he did not treat the women as emotional beings. And Colton is going out of his way to make sure that he is seen emotionally, but that also that the women are being seen emotionally. And so from the perspective of, you know, mental health and like working on your relationship, all the stuff that we do, it's really cool to see. Yeah,
I agree. That was my interesting take on the whole thing, is that Colton's doing better than I thought he would in a different way that I thought he would.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. All right. So let's start off the show starts. Boom. It's like, you know, tonight on The Bachelor, which I will never understand why they do this. I am already watching the show. Why do I want to see a preview of what I'm about to watch? Do you like seeing what you're about to see? I'm genuinely curious.
Here's what I've noticed, though. Those little beating like packages of like, this is what's coming up in the next thing. And they do it before every single commercial break, which is super annoying. But here's what I find the most interesting about it, is that they mislead you almost every single time. They'll show like, oh my god, someone said something, and then you actually watch it and it's completely out of context and no one actually is upset, or there's no drama, or there's no fights. They use those little entrance and exit packages to mislead the audience, and I don't care for it.
Yeah, I just don't like it. I don't want to know what's going to happen in 15 minutes. That's why I'm sitting on my couch dedicating 2 hours to watch the show. Like, anyway. So the show starts. We skipped the tonight on The Bachelor, and it is selfie footage of Colton in bed. And this was really cool. It was the first time that I have ever seen them do something like that. The only other time that I remember anything kind of happening like that was on Brad Womack's second stint as The Bachelor, which you were not watching at this point. I don't think we even knew each other at this point. We may have just met.
Yeah.
It was a long time ago. But there was footage of him talking to his therapist. And that was the only other time that I recall seeing like an inside where the Bachelor's staying type footage. But it was cool. He definitely seemed a little anxious, a little uncomfortable, but it was the morning before the first group date. So
I'd be the same way.
The emotions made sense.
Yeah, I thought that was a really nice change, and he kind of described to the audience of the show, if you will, what the dates were going to be like and kind of what he was looking forward to.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a nice little intimate look behind the scenes a little, and kind of us getting to know him in a different light than he's been portrayed either on Bachelor in Paradise or Becca's season or in The Men Tell All when he was super aggressive at everybody.
Yeah, totally.
You know, it's a nice look.
It is. Yeah. So then it cuts to the women at the Bachelor Mansion.
Why? Every time so far this season, whenever Chris Harrison or Colton greets the ladies, they go, "Hey guys!" Clearly not addressing any men. It's a really weird thing, and is anyone else bothered by that? Ladies, if you're watching this, would you be bothered if every time you were addressed as a group of women as, "Hey guys," does that seem weird to you, or am I just making a big deal out of it? I think it's weird.
I think that, for those of you who don't know, Kyle and I met working in restaurants. And one of the big things in restaurants is we worked at a really nice place and we were the corporate trainers, and you never went up to a table of women or mixed gender or really anybody and say, "Hey guys."
No, don't say that.
Right? Like, it's not a formal greeting. It's not an appropriate thing.
It's just weird.
It's just strange. Weird. So it's interesting. Your takeaway was that. Mine was, wow, who are some of these people? Like,
yeah, there are some nobodies.
But they look different. So what was so fascinating to me is the first night, like, they're all glammed out. You know, they have so much makeup on. It's a really long night. That first night is, like, filmed over 12 to 15 hours. It's outrageous. Oh, I don't have my ring on. Oh, boo. Anyway, some of them look so different. Not better or worse, just so different that I was like, who? Oh, okay, that's so-and-so, that's so-and-so. You actually made the comment that you liked...
Yeah, Kaylin is way more attractive without makeup. I mean, obviously she's Miss something, North Carolina, I think. Yes. So, obviously she's very beautiful. But, I mean, maybe it's my thing. I feel like this is kind of a cliche thing now, and people say it to, like, make it sound good. But I prefer less makeup on women, and she looks really beautiful without makeup.
Well, I just want to clarify. I think that it's not that you prefer less makeup. It's that you prefer a more natural look.
Yeah.
Because I think
Makes
that
sense.
some men especially, I'm going to stereotype here, anybody who doesn't wear makeup does not understand that sometimes when you sit and say, oh, she looks better without makeup, she may have the same amount of makeup on.
Oh, yeah.
As the other night. It's just done in a way where it looks like there's not as much makeup on.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I think what I talk about when I don't like the too much makeup look is it's more like when you get up close, you can see the makeup.
Right.
That's what I don't care for. And so, yes, more of a natural look. I would say that she probably was wearing very little at this time. However, for a beauty pageant star, I'm sure she's very adept at applying just the right amount of makeup. So, who's to say?
But isn't that an important clarification? Because I think that as a woman, I know that has been such a mixed message through my whole life.
Yeah.
There are so many men, including you, who say out loud, like, oh, I prefer no makeup. And then it's not that at all.
I do sometimes.
It's actually like natural looking makeup. So I think it's just a nice clarification.
Absolutely. So we get into the very first date. They do the date card. They drop the theme. And guess what? The theme of the first date is you never forget your first.
Okay, so pause for a sec.
Ay.
They cut to two individuals that are clearly the shit stirrers of the group, Onyeka and Demi. They're two of the shit stirrers in this group of women. And I don't even mean that right now in a negative way. They just are. We'll get there. Just so far, I'm trying to go chronologically. Demi had this quote. She said, the moment you sit down with Colton, you develop feelings for him. What?
I sit next to a lot of people on public transit, and I don't develop feelings for them.
That's what I mean. It's like...
Could you imagine the nightmare that would be?
If you just sat down. So to me, that kind of expressed this, like, she falls very quickly for not a lot of substantive reasons. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then Onyeka talks about how it's getting competitive. And
oh, that was so weird.
I don't understand why we have to continue this rhetoric of competition. And then Chris Harrison actually comes in and spurs it on, which, don't get me wrong, he's the host. It's his job. I get it.
To Hannah G.
Yes.
Yeah.
And says,
First impression rose.
Speaking of targets on your back, Miss Hannah G, like reminding the whole group, she got the first impression rose. You should all probably target her.
I like what she said, though, because then she had her own like little in the moment. It's called in the moment interviews when they did the short little cut to them where it's just them in a green screen room. We call them ITMs. They're in the moments.
It's not a green screen room,
isn't it?
No, they set up a room with all of the.
But it always looks like they're outside though, and they're never really outside.
No, then they are outside.
Well, then my bad. Anyway, when they do the little ITMs. Hannah G was like, thanks, Chris. Like, what the hell? It was the first night, and there's a target, but you said it, but no one else was really acting that way. I'm glad that she said that.
I don't understand why we have to continue this idea of women being in competition with each other.
Well, I agree with you in life. However, this is a semi-competitive show. There is a victory at the end if you want to look at it that way.
But that's what I'm saying is why do we have to look at it? So if the point of the show is to find the person, in theory, that you want to spend the rest of your life with, and that is winning. Yes. How is being uber competitive with the other women going to help you reach that goal?
I think that there's a way of being competitive, but not having it look like you're actively doing it. I think being competitive on The Bachelor is finding the most socially acceptable way to get the maximum amount of face time with the person you're interested in.
Yes.
And there are ways of stealing time with that person or, kind of shoving your way into that scenario or getting the right dates. There is a way to be competitive, but it doesn't fall under normal competition standards. Does that make sense?
Totally. And that's what I mean is like when you're sitting around, they're sitting around in the circle like in pajamas drinking coffee and she's like, I'm getting really competitive with you guys. I'm not going to lie. Like, why do we have to acknowledge...
Imagine her drinking your coffee as fast as possible.
But like, that's what it felt like. And then I just think that really, it doesn't... I understand that it makes for good TV. I get that.
Of course.
And that... Cool. I watched the show for part of that too. I get it.
Right.
But I think that part of the issue is that when we watch this, especially as women, to not take that and apply it to the rest of life.
Right.
Because dating, it's not a competition. Mm-hmm. Just like marketing yourself in business is not a competition. Only you are you. There's no competition. Like, I didn't have competition for Kyle because I knew that he was my person. Period. Like, the other girl could be hotter than me, be more outdoorsy than me, have all of these other qualities that Kyle might have wanted, but I knew that he was my person, so there was no competition.
That's fair.
So I don't think that it's a healthy thing to continue.
Right, and remember that scene was completely out of context. They just shoved it in our faces. Who knows? And it was a group discussion with the girls, too, so who knows what the producers who were clearly in the room were asking them group questions and then pointing out, and it was a weird camera angle of Anyanka anyway. It was like she's on the stairs and it was up from the stairs looking at her. So who's to say where that came from? But clearly the show is positioning her as a
shit stirrer.
And
I'm not calling her out specifically, like,
no, there's a couple shit stirrers every season.
It's just there's a cultural issue with women being in competition with each other. And I think that it's important to name and just say that it's unnecessary.
Fair enough. In this first couple of episodes, when it's kind of like the Wild West and people are getting cut right and left at the end of the show, I understand being a little bit more aggressive in your ways of getting FaceTime. Yep. However, I feel like there's a way to do it. Do I know what that way is? No, I don't.
Well,
okay.
Because we've never been on the show.
Right. And I'm never going to be. So, we get into the first group date. They pick a group. And, surprise, surprise, celebrity appearances. Nick Offerman and Megan Mullally, probably my favorite celebrity couple, if I'm being real.
Okay, so was ABC trying to tell us in this episode that Parks and Rec is coming back?
I feel like it, because later in the show, another person from Parks and Rec shows up, and I hope so. They've all said they're going to do it, which maybe that's the big take from this episode, is that Parks and Rec might be coming back.
Like, is ABC going to have it instead of NBC?
Well, so here's the thing. So, the group goes into a room, surprise, 2 famous people, 0 reactions from the group. I don't think these girls knew who they were.
No.
Granted, Nick Offerman had his head shaved, and we're used to seeing the Ron Swanson hair thing with the mustache.
I actually wrote down, they get to the theater in LA and Megan Mullally and Ron Swanson are there.
But that's the thing, is that he has like his scowl and his big old beard and he has his personality on stage, but I don't really think that the girls knew who they were until the packages, and then like, oh my god, it's these people, I love them. In a non-specific way. Because I was just told who they were.
I think like maybe 1 or 2 knew, but not a lot. So they start telling these stories, and the whole date premise is you have to tell the story of your first something.
Right.
So obviously the show was alluding to losing your virginity.
What? Virginity on this season?
And Megan Mullally and Ron Swanson talked about, it's Nick Offerman, by the way. I just call him Ron Swanson. That was his character on Parks and Rec.
Right.
They told these, like, innuendo-ish stories of how they each lost their virginity.
Innuendo, actually very sexually graphic innuendo.
I didn't think it was very funny. I think we disagreed on that. Yeah. I did not find it entertaining. I wrote down Colton looks really cute. Like, that's literally what I was focused on at that point. And yeah. And then they tell them that not only are they going to have to share one of their first stories, which nobody told a virginity story, I think. Right?
I blacked out for like half the stories.
I believe that nobody actually talked about their first time losing their virginity.
No.
But they have to perform it in front of 200 people. Now, what I like about this is that if you end up going to win The Bachelor, you're going to have to do a press circuit. Right? You're going to have to go on Good Morning America with Colton. You're going to go on Jimmy Kimmel. Like, there's a lot of things that they do.
Yeah, I think they do Fallon now, too.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So if you're not comfortable or able to put yourself in a position where you're comfortable talking in front of 200 people, that's actually telling for the future of this particular type of relationship because you're going to be in the public eye.
That's actually a good point that I never really thought about. I always kind of shit talk on the show for doing the really weird public appearance dates, like the dance to a single country singer in front of a bunch of people. In that light of having to go be famous after the show.
Oh, famous.
After the show.
We used air quotes for those of you watching the podcast. Or watching,
for those of you watching with your ears, we did air quotes for that. I guess that makes sense to have a bunch of really embarrassing things you had to do in public so that by the time the show's over and you go do the press circuit that
Right?
You're more comfortable. I guess there's a hidden need
value
for that.
in it.
Yeah, shit. Yeah, I was always making fun of the show for that. Now I kind of get it. See, this is the point. I take back a lot of the shit I talk about the show.
Amazing.
A lot.
So then they start getting, prepping their thing. Nicole from Miami is self-describing, which is something that Ben Higgins does not like. I'm waiting, Ben, for you to comment on the self-description.
Something about Nicole feels very desperate.
Yeah.
She's got weird energy. Hannah G shares that she's really nervous about everything, and Colton comforts her very effectively.
Yes.
I swear, this whole episode is kind of a testament to the self-work Colton has done.
Oh, yeah, and I also thought that Demi reminded me at this point of Corinne from Nick's season, but younger and from the South. Now, as the episode goes on, it starts to get a little bit more intense, but at this point, it kind of clicked with me, like, oh, she's getting a very similar, it's that young, attractive, blonde, aggressive, over-sexualized.
And willing to say stupid shit on camera.
Yes.
She is very willing to say some stupid things.
Yes.
And proceeds to in this episode. Well, here's what starts. So they go on stage and they're going to do a practice run of they practice a little bit. They finally get to doing the actual presentation in front of 200 people. And Colton starts and he does something incredible.
Yeah.
He tells the story of the first time he told somebody that he was a virgin. And he tells it in a very, obviously he's worked with someone on how to tell the story. Because he tells a very sensitive story.
It was beautiful.
I almost wanted to call it tender, which almost sounds a little weird, because he tells a story of being in a locker room and having somebody who's like a formidable football player personality.
He said a veteran.
Ask him, like, hey, how many women have you slept with? And he said 0. And the guy said, that's awesome. That's really cool that you've done that. And it was the first time that he was accepted when he told somebody that he was a virgin. It was the first time he told someone he was a virgin and he was accepted for it. And I think that was a really good story, and it showcases, again, the amount of work that he's done.
I agree with you. I wrote down a quote from one part of his story, and he said, I made up lies, and I was uncomfortable speaking my truth. And I thought that was so poignant, because for him to acknowledge, again, very publicly, like, I lied to people, and I lied because I was uncomfortable. He didn't blame external things like, oh, well, the guys really just pressured me and I felt, I had to. You don't even understand. Like, there was no defensiveness there. It was just him saying, like, I was uncomfortable speaking my truth and so I made these things up. Yeah. And I liked it. Yeah. Next up is Elise, who is the older redhead. She's 31. And her whole story was about her age, to kind of call attention to the fact that she is older than a lot of the other women on the show, but that her history is actually dating older guys, and now she's enjoying dating a younger guy.
Which is her first.
Right? So I thought it was really cute. Demi calls her brave.
And then age shames her.
She says,
at the same time.
Because, quote, there's no advantage in being an older woman here. And I wrote down, fuck you, Demi.
Well, hold on. Let's get it straight here. 31, not what you classify as older.
No.
I think that term should be used.
In no way.
I say the word should here very consciously. I think that term should be used very carefully when describing anybody, because we can be, as human beings, very sensitive about our ages. And as 40 is the new 30 or 20 is the new 60 or something. People keep throwing out new definitions for ages, and it's all a personal situation, because there are people who are 70 years old who are in better shape than a lot of 30-year-olds, and it doesn't matter. In this case, people are really worked up about a number. It's very odd, and the only person who really seems to worry about the age thing happens to be
the youngest
Demi, who age shames the rest of the episode.
So then let's go quickly through until we get to Demi's. So Nicole from Miami, her story was about the first time she dated a white guy who's Colton. That was interesting, but okay. Hannah G basically told the story of The Bachelor. I was very confused about this.
The way she talked, it was like she was giving a bridesmaid speech.
Yeah,
it was weird. She was nervous. It was fine.
Bree then, they totally teased us. She goes, this is the story of the first time I felt comfortable in my own skin. And I was like, oh my gosh, let me listen. And then they cut to the next person. And
Poor
I was
Brie.
like, give me this. Like,
She's getting a side ad. She's going to get
I
edited
know,
off
but
the
she
show.
seems to be, I mean, first of all, she's stunningly beautiful.
Yeah.
Like, stunningly beautiful. And they keep cutting out her good emotional content. It's driving me nuts.
So then Catherine and Onyeka, they take their time on stage to, instead of tell a personal story to connect with Colton, they take their time to shit talk each other on stage.
About the first night.
Which, I mean, why? What are you here for? What is the purpose of being on the show? Is the purpose to have a relationship by the end with the lead? Then you're doing it pretty wrong by focusing on other people. Historically speaking, not a good move in Bachelor world.
Yeah, it's just not good at all.
Then Tracy
talks about how she was competing for a virgin with her friend, and then her friend punched her in the face, and then...
You ever have someone who tells you a story that keeps getting weirder and more elaborative? Like they're kind of lying and they're trying to make a story of like how fucked up they are.
Kind of what it felt like.
Then I was like drunk and I got in trouble and then I ran from the cops and then like I jumped a fence and you're like, I feel like you're making this up as you go and you're trying to sound badass.
Yeah, I don't know. Something...
Thumbs down.
I didn't like it. So then we get to Demi. Now, Demi's teasing the whole time through the process of them like writing down their first stories. She's teasing like, my story's gonna win them all, blah, 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 blah. So she basically used it as an excuse to get her first kiss with Colton. So this is what was so interesting to me, though. So if she had ran down the stage, gave him a kiss, and said, and that's the story of my first kiss with Colton, I would have actually been like, you know what? Respect. That was a first. Granted, she like forced it, and I don't love that, but like... Cool, whatever. It's The Bachelor.
Right.
You took your thing.
Sure.
But she says, and this is the story of how I got the first group date rose. Which hadn't happened yet. And she doesn't later. Spoiler alert. It was very weird. It was very weird. And I wrote down, if he gives her the rose after this, he's going to lose a lot of respect from the women. Because she... clearly used this as a manipulative thing. All the other women, even including Catherine and Onyeka, who used it very poorly to just talk shit on each other, at least they told a story that didn't involve, like, assaulting Colton in front of 200 people.
Right.
It was just not...
The way Debbie carries herself, I wrote down, is it possible to be a female douchebag? Because if I was going to call a guy a douchebag, it'd be because of reasons like this. And is there a feminine term for douchebag? I feel like it's a very masculine term. Like, you call a guy a douchebag. What do you call a girl who's being a douchebag? Is that a douchebag?
Yeah, is that a gender-neutral term?
I mean...
I don't know.
I feel like in the spirit of equality, I think Demi's a douchebag.
I didn't like it. I
Don't
didn't
like her.
it. So that is the second commercial break.
Colton seems to be having fun, by the way. Before they cut, regardless of Demi and all the craziness here, he seems to genuinely be enjoying watching just kind of the chaos around him. He seems to be a very pleasant passenger.
Well, yeah, and I think that he likes, I mean, and you can speak to this from the male perspective, but like, a lot of the women were clearly a bit nervous, and it was outside their comfort zones. This is the first group date of the season, and I think that he enjoyed watching them be a little uncomfortable. But not in like a, haha, you're uncomfortable, like an, oh, this is really endearing, and like, he was making sure to laugh at their jokes, even if they weren't that funny. Like, he was the, you know when your mom is in the audience, and like, your performance, like, even if it's not great, she's like, oh my god, my baby! Like, that was him.
Agreed.
It was cute. It was very cute.
Alright, so we get back to the mansion, and then it's announced that Hannah B has the very first solo date. Hannah B is the other pageant model. She is Miss Alabama?
Yes.
Yeah.
And she mentions it's her birthday. So she's going to, well, she mentions for the first time out of like 500 times that it's her birthday. So, cool. Hannah B gets the first one-on-one date.
Right.
Then we cut back to the group date. They are at a rooftop bar in LA. It kind of cracked me up, actually, because they were in downtown LA, and one of the girls made a comment like, all of these lights, it's just so romantic. And I don't know if you've been to downtown LA, but like, it's the least romantic place ever. Like, literally. I could not think of a less romantic place than downtown LA. But okay. That's fine.
So they get to the tower. It's like a club, like some upscale club on the top of one of the towers.
Or a hotel.
And something like that. So Colton proceeds to thank the ladies for their vulnerability and then tells them to expect to do that as the show goes on. Which I really liked because instead of it being like, we're going to have such a fun time, or we're going to have an adventure, or we're going to be crazy, or we're going to blah, 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 he's telling them that it's going to be an emotionally challenging, vulnerable time on the show because that's what he wants in a partner. And I think that's probably, of the very little, technically, of the show that I've seen, that's like the best a Bachelor started out by telling them, like, this is going to be A, hard, B, fun, but, like, expect the hard. Because that's what a show like this is going to be like.
And see, that's why I am liking him
more
than Ari, especially.
Yeah.
But besides Nick Viall, he's been my other favorite Bachelor. So my two favorite Bachelors up until this point has been Ben Higgins and Nick Viall. And Ben Higgins got a lot of criticism for being boring. However, I did not find him boring. Ari was boring. And Nick, I liked because he was so honest and upfront and emotional. And he had no problem getting rid of women on dates. He was talking about feelings a lot. Colton is kind of hybridizing Nick and Ben for me. He has the sensitivity and the, he's like more restricted, like Ben, where he's like internalizes things and is like a little slower to say them out loud, but he has the depth of Nick and he has the ability to just say things. And I really appreciated that.
Yeah.
So Demi grabs him first, and here's the thing. I don't like Demi. We're going to talk a lot more about her throughout this episode, unfortunately. But I don't think that there is anything wrong with one of the women grabbing him right away.
I agree, but not how she did it. Because here's what she does. She, Colton's like, okay, we're going to have a really good time. Cheers, everybody. So he's got his glass of white wine out.
Cheersing.
Which, by the way, Colton, they pick, the Bachelor and contestants pick the type of alcoholic beverage they prefer to have, and the show provides it for them. Something about the fact that Colton has picked white wine I find somehow endearing. I don't know what it is. Maybe because, traditionally speaking, in an unhealthy, sexual belief system, that white wine is an effeminate thing, 'cause it's not.
White wine is not masculine.
Right, because usually the Bachelor has, red wine or a beer or, a cocktail or something like that, from what I've seen. But the fact that he picks out white wine, I don't know, it just kind of makes me smile, and I like it. I find it endearing. So here's what happens, though. So we cheers.
Okay.
It's like cheers, and then you take a drink, which is the good luck part of cheers. We don't drink after you cheers, then it's bad luck.
Okay.
So you drink, and then his glass is still in his mouth, and Demi's
I'll be Colton.
Let's go! And he's like, oh, okay. He's not even done drinking. So here's what happens. She picks him right away, pounces.
But hold on. I still don't think that there's anything wrong with that.
But let me get to it. She does that, and then in her package, she says that she's a woman supporter, but doesn't understand why these women don't just grab him when she is interrupting him from actually consuming his beverage before she actually says something. So she's making fun of the women for not being as aggressive as she is, when technically no one could have actually beaten her to the punch. This is like cheating and then blaming everyone else for not cheating.
Right. Okay.
Kind of a shitty thing to say.
So I agree completely with that.
Fair enough. See, that's my problem with it.
100% agree. Where I have issue is this idea that it is bad for a woman to be aggressive to take the Bachelor away.
Oh, no.
Because I think that especially in this environment, that it is perfectly normal and you need to fight for your time. And that's why there was this whole disagreement in the first episode of should Colton have told Catherine to go away after the fourth time?
Yeah.
Or is that actually a positive thing that she's taking the initiative? Because in this world, in this bubble, as Chris Harrison reminds them every 5 seconds, the time that they get with Colton is everything.
Limited, yeah.
So I just don't want, because we don't like Demi, and because what she said wasn't great, I don't want that to be misconstrued as a woman who is aggressive in asking a guy to go talk is bad.
Oh, no.
Do you know what I'm saying?
100%. There's nothing bad about being aggressive and going after what you want, except if you bend the rules a little and then make fun of other people for not doing it. It's a character, I'm not going to call it a flaw, but it's something about her character that speaks very loudly. and it's not something that I'd prefer to be around.
100%. And then, Demi comes back from her time with Colton, and she's clearly trying to rile up the other women. So she comes back, she's like, my time was amazing, and then she grabs the group date rose and kind of like twirls it around, and it is...
She's being antagonistic.
So antagonistic. And here's my issue. She's the youngest one there, okay? So maturity-wise, she is theoretically the least mature. Now, we all know that, there are 23-year-olds out there that are far more mature than many 33-year-olds out there.
Yeah.
In this case, it happens to be that she is the least mature,
the
for
inverse.
sure. And the older women, again, they react to her. And they give her exactly what she is looking for, which is a response.
Yeah.
Right? If you're getting bullied at school, or if there is a mean person at work, and they are just poke, all they're looking for is a response. If you don't engage and give them that response, they'll stop because they're not getting what they want. And so, unfortunately, Tracy, especially Tracy...
Oh, Tracy.
Really reacted to Demi's rose twirling.
So what happens is she comes out and she's like, nah, she has this little child's voice. She's like, nah, I have the rose. This is going to be mine later. It's actually almost exactly what she sounds like. I am very proud of myself for recreating her voice. Almost exactly.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
So it cuts to Tracy saying how she just hates Demi. And then she does the mocking thing. And then Tracy says that... So, I understand she's upset. And I think Tracy played her hand a little bit in revealing that she's a super fan of the show. That's my theory. Because she, all of a sudden, is very caught up on the process of the show. It's almost as if she is personally offended by Demi's actions. She says that she is short of breath over the taunt and slightly sick to her stomach over Demi's actions. Now, I understand being frustrated that someone's taunting you. Blaming it on the rules of the reality show you're on.
So I want to talk about this rose thing in a second. I just want to get through the rest of the women, and then can we talk about the rose?
Yes.
Okay. So
I wrote Demi laughs like a goat that's not healthy.
Yeah, no, she does. And so Tracy talks to Demi. Demi says to the camera, she had a frowny face on, so I could tell she was sad. I'm not worried about it because there's no advantage in being an older woman here. I wanted to punch my TV.
Yeah, fuck you, Demi.
So then we go to a commercial. So then Hannah and Colton have a lovely moment.
Yep.
He says, I know there's other people here. I don't want you to pay attention to that.
Right.
He clearly really likes Hannah G, the one that he gave the first impression rose to.
Yeah.
They have that conversation where it's like, hey, don't worry. You're good. That was cool. It appeared as though Demi was spying on them. We can't tell if that was just the producer edit or if she was. But I realized in that moment, I don't know if you guys remember Chad Johnson. He is the one that in the Chris Harrison package was like, fuck you, Chris Harrison. He was an unbelievable...
he was a douchebag.
Yes, but more than that, he was mean. He's the only contestant in history that actually got asked to leave for being too drunk and mean. He was mean.
Oh, he was a threat to the other guys there.
Yeah.
He was openly prepared to be violent.
And Demi is... basically Chad in female form.
Maybe they should just get together after the show. She's clearly not going to win.
Yeah. So then he talks to Nicole, blah, blah, blah. Nicole's in love with him already, which is very concerning for Nicole's state of mind.
Did we get to Elise yet?
Did we skip Elise?
Yeah, so Elise, the redhead who is the oldest woman of 31 years old.
And then we'll get to the rose.
Who is all of 4 after the show, older than Colton, so older. But here's the thing, though. He's super into her.
Yeah.
When they're having their time, I wondered if he was kind of drunk or super into her, because he's he is all about her, and he's like, you're super sexy, I love your confidence. And actually, I really noticed this about Colton. He uses the word sexy really well. traditionally speaking, it reminds me of like the 90s where like someone's sexy and like it was kind of it's like a modern version, or like the word hot is like a modern.
90s sexy though.
But that's the thing. So in previous seasons of The Bachelor that I've seen, guys would always tell women like, you're really hot. I like the way that you were confident. That's hot. Your confidence is hot. Or like the way you were today was cute. Like they use really short terms that are really easily thrown around, but no one really calls people sexy for the way they are. I haven't heard it really often lately. And Colton's like, you're really, like the way that you portray yourself, your confidence is really sexy. And I thought that was a really interesting use of the word, and I, for one, applaud it because I think that he's sharing that he is attracted to her both emotionally and physically at the exact same time based on her confidence. And I think that was a really good use of that word. And I wrote, let's be real, she's 31, not 41. Why do we keep calling her older?
Seriously. Now, there was a lull in their conversation where it kind of felt like they ran out of things to talk about, so they just started making out.
I said tongue kiss.
They did tongue kiss. They did.
The tongues met first.
But Elise ends up getting the group date rose, which I was so thrilled about because it was literally Demi's worst nightmare.
Yeah.
It was like the oldest woman there gets the rose.
My notes make fun of Demi.
And Nicole, who had opened up to Colton about her twin brother being autistic, she starts crying. And it brought up something for me because I'm a therapist and because I constantly go underneath what's actually happening with my clients. It brought up this meta conversation for me. And I actually paused it to talk to Kyle about it. And so I want to kind of propose this to you guys and ask you what your thoughts are. So why on this show, Nicole was crying because she did not get the rose after opening up to Colton about her brother. So why is opening up about yourself equivalent to someone having feelings for you? I wrote down the rose is not rewarding opening up. The rose represents interest in the person and a want to continue on the season, on the journey, whatever word you want to use.
Yeah.
And then this is actually a really interesting discussion. So what do roses on The Bachelor mean to you? And is a group date rose different from a rose ceremony rose or a one-on-one date rose or a two-on-one date rose?
I think they're different.
Like, what does the rose mean? Because Nicole was upset because she, in her words, had opened up and thought because of that, she would get the rose. And that is fascinating to me because it's like she's looking for a reward for opening up when the reward is that you opened up.
What I see, I completely agree with you, first of all. I think that that's a really odd... Her expectations around reward were very odd to me.
But I've seen that, like, this happens all the time on the show.
Right.
This is a common theme.
What I took away from that is Nicole revealed to Colton her really only explanation as to who she is. She chose to be a caregiver to her brother, which is incredibly powerful, and
it's really sad.
It's a huge sacrifice.
You can tell that that's her identity.
And that's the thing. She revealed her identity to Colton, which she probably doesn't do to a lot of people, and she thought that was enough to get the rose when it's not, because all you are is explaining who you are, and who you are has so much to do with someone else that it's going to be really difficult to move forward from this point if she is so shattered by the fact that he didn't reward her openness. I understand where it's coming from. It's a difficult situation to be in, though.
Yeah, and I think that it's important to recognize that, like, it's okay to be upset when you don't get a rose, when you wanted to get a rose.
Absolutely.
That's fine. The point of the rose is, in my opinion, I value this relationship, and at this time, out of this group of people, I want to tell you that I want to definitely continue on this journey with you.
I like you the best right now.
I wouldn't even go that far, because I think he likes Hannah G the best right now.
Well, fair. I guess that in this case, he knows that Hannah G is going to go farther, so he picks the woman who's the most interesting out of the group that he's unsure about. Yes. Maybe that's what I see the group roses being about. 2-on-1, no one ever gets a rose, I think. I think they usually go home.
No, sometimes they
I'm looking forward to seeing who goes home on a 2-on-1 this
It'll
time.
be Onyeka and someone.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But, so, we want to know from you guys, what do the roses mean to you?
Yeah.
Leave it in a comment below. If you're listening to the podcast, tag us on Facebook or Instagram. If you're on YouTube, comment below.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting discussion, and I know that it sounds like, what do you mean, what does a rose mean? But we all have different meanings around things, right. And so it's really interesting to get on the same page with what they mean. Right.
So we got to get through a bunch more. I did notice, so in between all of this stuff, when they're doing the big group date at the club, in the tower or whatever, Demi was spying on people, and then, or supposedly spying on people, and then they have her ITM, where her eyes tell me she's drunk, and so do her words. She may not have been, but visually and auditorily speaking, she was drunk, and talking about how none of the girls around Colton have the balls, and he needs a dominant woman, and he really doesn't know what he needs, but he needs a dominant woman, even though he doesn't know that yet, and how his exes weren't confident enough or strong enough. And if you look at Colton's dating history, he dates like only strong, confident women, which is kind of fucked up for Demi to say.
So that was when I thought she reminded me of Chad.
Yeah.
She is exhibiting like toxic masculinity through a female.
Yeah, like if a guy was saying that, like she doesn't know what she wants yet, she needs a strong man. That's literally what Demi was doing.
Yeah,
fucked up.
It was not good. So we go back to the house.
Right.
Caitlin is sharing with Bree that she and Hannah, the two...
Is it Caitlin? I think it's Caitlin.
Sorry. Caitlin was sharing with Bree, thank you, that she and Hannah were friends. They were on the Miss America? Yeah. Miss America competition together. And that Hannah showed like a different side of herself.
They both say this about each other, by the way.
Yeah, and that then the friendship ended. It was very strange. So let's summarize this one-on-one very quickly. Can you summarize it in... Hold on. I will summarize it in 12 words. Ready?
Okay, go ahead.
Let's make a toast to... First, it's my birthday. Cheers. Roll Tide. That's the whole day.
Hannah B, this first one-on-one was a fucking train wreck. So clearly, here's what I noticed.
I was hurting during this date. I was hurting.
On the Kaylin and Hannah situation, I wrote they have bad blood a la Taylor Swift and Katy Perry. It feels kind of like that. Like, they both say the exact same thing about each other. Like, oh, she's got a dark side. You don't even want to know. I'm afraid she'll say something. Like, what? Did you, like, try to kill someone together on the pageant tour?
Yeah, is it like Pretty Little Liars? Like, what's happening?
Like, did you do something illegal on the pageant run and you're both hiding from your dark past? I don't think so. I am imagining that this is something way less worth talking about. So, Hannah clearly has some confidence issues, but she seems aware of it. Before the date, she says that if she gets into her head, she will spiral because she has confidence issues.
And that's what happened.
She seems aware of it, and yet... So Colton says this thing. He says, I'm so excited to just go have fun. We're going to get on horses. It's the first one-on-one. We're going to go to a hot tub. We're going to have a great time. And I'm just looking to have fun. I'm sorry, Colton. Instead, you were an emotional support person. You had to do work on this one-on-one. So they go on horses.
Which
Hannah's
is beautiful to see.
Amazing and totally respectful.
Like, Colton pulled out some serious therapeutic skills on this date.
So they do the first random hot tub. I was looking forward to it, like, being a better circumstance, because they put hot tubs in the middle of nowhere. And it's my favorite, like, trope of the show. It's like, we're in the desert, and look, a hot tub. Weird.
So in the essence of time, let's skip past all of that, because literally I summarized it with the cheers. And let's go to the nighttime section.
Okay, so after the daytime date, in which Hannah crumbles hard.
Like, literally cannot speak.
She does this thing really quickly, where her face is super puffy and round, and she's just, like, smiling and touching Colton's face, and smiling like this.
You guys, it was really, I've seen this happen before with some clients, and...
full-blown panic.
It was... She is so consumed, and they talk about this later.
Yeah.
She's so consumed of trying to be, quote-unquote, perfect.
Yeah.
That words could not come out of her mouth.
Yep.
To talk, because they had to be perfect.
Right.
And this is why I had a panic attack at our wedding.
Yeah.
So, like, I empathize with her so deeply, and Colton empathized with her beautifully.
He did a really, really good job. And then between the daytime date and the nighttime date, his in the moment, he's like, I can tell what's going on. I hope she can shake it off because I like her. But if if she cannot get out of her own head, I don't want to continue with this because she's not ready. And he was very direct in his in the moment about how if she couldn't pull her head out a little bit, he was going to have to not give her a rose because if she's so consumed with her confidence, then he's obviously not looking for that in a lifetime partner, which I completely respected, and I think he handled it really well.
I agree. And the beginning of the nighttime date was still a bit rocky. I thought it was really ironic. They edited it so that the very first thing when they sat down at the table was Colton giving a toast, and I was like, please don't make her do it again. Please don't make her do it again.
Yeah.
So Colton, fast forward through the bit of awkwardness and deflection that happens, Colton empathizes with her about trying to be perfect all of the time.
Yeah.
So he acknowledges that that's clearly what was going on, that he also struggled with that, and that a lot of his work has been around letting go of that expectation. And then she deflects again. But after that, she actually opens up.
Yeah.
And what she said brought so much clarity, to me at least, as to what was going on. So she is a religious person, grew up, obviously she's from Alabama, Tuscaloosa, I believe, and she talks about how she was born and raised with this idea of not having sex until marriage, which is how Colton was also raised. Now, Colton is not waiting until marriage now. He's waiting until he's in love. But she wanted to wait until she was married. And then she tells him that she was in a relationship with someone and had sex with him. Now, she doesn't actually say, I had sex with him, which is another indicator into the guilt that she's feeling. But then she says, I have guilt around that. And then she said, I don't feel perfect because I can't give that to someone anymore. So again, we're going back to this thing that religion puts into our minds of your virginity is something to give someone else. It's not. It's not that. And so this beautiful human being, both inside and out, is walking around thinking that she is imperfect. Now, granted, we're all imperfect. That's not the issue.
That's like the point of humanity.
But she thinks that there is something wrong with her because she cannot give Colton her virginity.
Right.
And then she said, oh my gosh, I'm telling you everything right now. I'm such a hot mess.
What is that?
So I went from being like, oh my gosh, this poor girl, to like, oh my gosh, I want to help her. Like, as a clinician and as a therapist, I just want to jump through the screen and like interrupt the date and be like, can we just pause and process what's happening here? Because this poor woman has so many distorted beliefs about herself. And it was hard for me to watch. It was really hard for me to watch that.
Yeah, pretty sure that's not the goal of religion, is to saddle us with tons of self-doubt, guilt, and shame over a decision that I guarantee you she made thinking it was the best decision for the time and moment. So, just take a look at that. If you feel like you aren't a good enough person because of a belief like that, maybe examine it, because it really has done some psychological damage to her, and it's going to take some time for her to get over that, and I think it's going to affect her time on the show.
And Hannah, if for some reason you are watching or listening to this and ever want support,
we're here.
We're here. Like, it was really hard to watch that and know that there is support out there, but that clearly it has not been offered. So just know that you're not alone, Hannah. There are tons of other people who feel this way. And I thought that Colton did an amazing job. So he does end up giving her the rose on the group date on the one-on-one date. And she does acknowledge how patient he was and that he gave her multiple opportunities to try and open up. And that's good because clearly she was not too out of her head to like notice that she was holding back, that she was dragging it. and that he was really trying hard. And I did think that how he handled it was good, and that the validation of you opened up and were vulnerable for something that you really couldn't. Now I am interested in you because I saw that imperfection. Here's the rose. Is a positive validation.
Yes, it is. I found the end of the date very boring because Colton explained to her why it was fine, and she goes, I know, every time he says something. Then gives her the rose. I said it's the most boring rose ever. She holds the rose. Here's what I find interesting. She holds the rose like a trophy, and then all of a sudden it has the biggest smile ever and looks like nothing's wrong. Yeah. I believe her time in pageants made her a reward-based value person, which is not a good place to be in life because you don't get a trophy just for existing.
Yeah.
It's concerning. It's a thing. And then more birthday stuff. I feel like she's got some damage around her birthday because every time she, it's my birthday, I'm supposed to be having fun, is like all I get from her. And it shows me that she doesn't have a lot of life experience outside of pageants, which is, as I think culturally we all know, not the healthiest place to be in if you want to like have self-worth.
And look, in some ways, she and Colton are very good for each other. In the sense of they both have a religious upbringing, but are trying to let go of this perfection thing. They both dedicated their lives to something that was very all-consuming. For him, it was football. For her, it was pageants. If she is willing to do the work and to grow like he is, which, based on what she did during the date, it seems like she may be, it could, like,
maybe
she can work through this, but it was definitely, it was hard to watch.
I did take that. Colton might have actually gotten a real look at what a relationship would be like with her due to her, I wrote mental instability, which is fitting, I think, for the situation.
It's accurate.
And like all he wanted was have a fun day, but he ended up having to focus on his partner at the time. So he got, if anything, a real look at a relationship with Hannah before she has done work on herself, which could be a positive thing actually for her as the show goes on because of the challenges they faced very early on. It could either end her time quickly or prolong it to the end. So we'll see.
Well, it's like what we talk about a lot. The conflict is supposed to bring people together.
Yeah.
Right? Not tear you apart. And so they already overcame something that was not like a Bachelor thing to overcome. It was a real life thing to overcome.
Hopefully she's able to say, thank you for that last time. That was awesome. I feel better. And then move forward and not...
And now I'm going to go to therapy.
Right. Hopefully she's in therapy.
So then we are on the second group date. So on the second group date, we have Alex, Erica, Katie, Kaylin, Sydney, Tasha, Nina, Kirpa, Caitlin, Courtney, Cassie, and Heather. So that is 12 women on this group date. And the date card says, I can't fight this feeling anymore. Love, Colton.
I feel like the date cards used to be more creative. And now it's just like, we're going camping.
You've watched 2 seasons.
Well, I feel like it anyway. So... They do summer camp, and Colton's wearing a t-shirt and jeans, and the girl immediately, one of the girls is like, oh my god, he's so hot. And I'm like, okay, he's in a t-shirt.
He did look cute.
Sure.
But it was weird, because they were all in athleisure.
Yeah, he's in a t-shirt and jeans. Like, that is kind of weird.
Didn't make
so
sense.
they play some fun games. They throw the football around. They play, like, Duck, Duck, Goose. Colton gets to show off his physicality. The girls were all happy. The girls who are in really good shape get to show off their physicality.
God, some of their... I just have to say, like...
Well, I mean, we have, an NBA dancer, another dancer who I think was a sport dancer also, and then, like, women are incredibly good shape.
The women's bodies this season, especially, like, damn.
That's a 2Y, damn, from Rachel.
Like 3, damn.
So, guess who from Parks and Rec is the guest star on this bit? Billy
Eichner!
Eichner!
Who none of them knew very clearly.
Oh yeah, which I really appreciated his time because when he does his show, Billy in the Streets, he's so over the top, and a lot of his characters are really over the top, and he was so muted, and I was tentative around him because he can be very explosive and say kind of fucked up stuff sometimes, which is funny. But
sometimes.
I was concerned there was going to be a heavy amount of virgin shaming, and there was none.
No, there was only a couple jokes.
But the jokes were like...
They were kind of funny.
Kind of dumb, but they were kind of good at the same time, so...
Before you talk about Billy Eichner, because then we're going to get into, like, the whole date, and we'll try to wrap this up. I know we're about to hit an hour, which is, like, insane. I don't like this whole 2-team thing. So they do this all the time on... No, it's so fucked up. Your opinion is wrong. this whole concept of, okay, so we're splitting the group in half already so that this group goes on this group date and this group goes on this group date. That's fine. But to then say this group that went on this group date, only half of you actually get to go on the full date, I think that is not cool, especially when it's based on a physical activity that has nothing to do with your compatibility with the lead. If the point of the show is to fall in love and get married and spend the rest of your life with someone, why are we taking away time from people based on games like tug of war and rowing a boat?
I get what you're saying. I don't agree with it. I think that it throws a little bit of lightheartedness into everything.
Lightheartedness?
Yeah. Because if you're able to have fun and compete and stay focused on the actual reason you're there, that's the person who wins.
But it would not be fun for me.
Well, it's not for you.
Well, I just think it's not cool.
Fair enough.
What do you guys think? Let us know.
Yeah. Do you think that having competitions on the show to spend more time with The Bachelor are fair or not?
Wait. Okay, what you said is different. It's fine to have a competition to spend extra time.
Right.
Don't take away what everybody else gets. So everyone on the first group date got to go to the nighttime cocktail party. They took away that opportunity from half of the girls.
It's the second episode. They gotta cut like 5 more girls at the end of this.
Nope, they only cut 3.
Well, okay.
Wrong. I disagree. But let us know what you guys think.
So anyway, Billy Eichner makes a little bit of fun of Colton. There's some gentle ribbing. It's pretty entertaining. And asks him, so there's been a lot of speculation on the internet because of Colton's virginity. Maybe he's gay. It's a really dumb speculation in my opinion. But Billy Eichner asks him, are you sure? Are you sure that you're just not gay? And Colton seems incredibly tickled by this idea.
Well, I think what he said was, maybe you're the first gay bachelor and you don't even know it. And Colton was, legitimately
He laughed. He thought it was hilarious. He's oh, shit, that'd be funny if I was, but I'm not. But no, I'm not. You could see, if anyone wonders if Colton's really gay, I think that was the out on it. I feel like Billy Eichner probably would have been a little bit more intense around it if that had been the thing. It just made a joke, and Colton thought it was funny.
Also,
I appreciate his laughter.
I wrote down, oh my god, Colton's face, does he know what fluid sexuality is?
Right.
And then I wrote, the show brings up the best talking points. Mm-hmm. Because to just say, the first gay bachelor, okay, yes, it was funny in a line. I do find it funny. It was a funny joke. But the idea that someone is either gay or straight continues this falsification of sexuality. So, anyway, they're not going to, get into it on the show, but, I think it's really important that we as a culture just talk about the fact that sexuality is fluid. And it's not just I only like women, I only like men. Some people, and most people, fall more somewhere in between.
It's true. So the girls do 3 different competitions, some, summer camp style competitions. There's canoeing, there's tug of war, there's something else.
Tug of war looked really hard.
If you want to win tug of war, here's the thing. You need to have coordination over strength. You can have a bunch of people pulling who are super strong, but if the other team is more coordinated, they win. The red team, more coordinated, they won. So they, we were talking about and deliberating on, the yellow team goes home because they didn't win, and the red team gets to spend overnight in the campground with Colton. Not with him, they go to their own cabin and he has his, but they spend a little bit of extra time together and get more nighttime conversations at a little cocktail party. They cut back to the mansion, girls who are all worried about, oh no, we get to spend the night, and maybe it's the only other time you get to spend the night around him besides the fantasy suite. And I wrote, some dumb girl says, maybe he'd give in to the temptation tonight.
That was Catherine.
Well, that's dumb, and you're dumb for saying it, Catherine. Because maybe he's going to give in to the temptation after he's been so outspoken around how he's only going to have sex with the person that he's in love with. Maybe you give in to the temptation on the second date? How stupid are you? Come on.
Can you tell who's the therapist between the two of us?
Yeah, obviously. I'm not sitting here practicing therapy, but
You're dumb. What you think is dumb.
But, in this context, in this situation, that's dumb. This person who's been so outspoken vulnerably around how he's only going to sleep with the person he's in love with is not going to give it up on a camping trip because, oh no, I'm physically close to a girl. Wow. That would have happened
really funny. Okay, let's whip through these conversations. So Katie and Colton have a great conversation around expectations of, like, who you're supposed to be.
He uses the word sexy again a bunch.
Yes, it seems like she might have grown up in also an athletic, competitive family.
Like mysterious dance background.
They clearly have a very good connection. They have one of those kisses where it was, like, actually, you could feel the closeness. It wasn't like... It
was a good kiss.
Awkward pause. It
was like, is this the moment we kiss? Oh, yes, it is. No, tongues first. Let's go. Good. Yeah, no, it was good.
Then there's this whole segment around Heather who has never been kissed. I really want to skip through this because it's I don't want to get into it that much. But she shares with him that she's a virgin and that she has never been kissed. He at first has the response that I think we all had, which was like a very appropriate amount of like laughing while he processed.
That's why I think he's a good bachelor, because he showed the right amount of laughter to her, and she's like, yeah, I know it's a little. And he's like, it's a little. And she's like, yeah, I know. And then they went right through it. So
and
good.
then he's like, but I respect you
good
for
all
it.
Around.
And he said, to me, that shows that you have a high level of self-value and self-worth, which is true. Like,
yeah, and she's aware that she's weird because of it.
Right. Like she says, I know it's odd that at 22 I haven't kissed anybody, but the way that she describes it is very similar to how Colton describes his virginity.
And I respect so much about it. I just don't care.
Okay, so then we switch to Kaylin, who Miss North Carolina. Yep. She tells Colton she works with sick kids in hospitals as Miss North Carolina. Colton also visits children in hospitals for his charity, so they bonded over that.
Yep.
And then they make out.
It cuts to Hannah G talking about Colton at the mansion because she didn't get to go on the group date, and she is clearly beginning to spiral again by talking about other women around him with Kaylin.
No, she was talking about her friendship with Kaylin.
Right, but she's at the mansion spiraling a little bit while he's off at the date.
Yes.
Scary.
Yeah. So the group date rose goes to Heather, never been kissed. I actually thought that it was very sweet because he knew what vulnerability it took to do that. And again, I'm not saying, just like we talked about with Nicole on the first date, I do not think that just because you open up means that you should get the rose. There were a lot of people that opened up.
It's the context of the opening up, I think, that is valuable. I wrote down Heather no kisses gets the rose, and the crowd goes mild.
Yes.
Because, okay. And the girls are really upset about it, too. And they're like, I can't believe I didn't get it. Okay, second date, it's the girl who hasn't been kissed yet. Like,
calm down.
Just take a chill pill.
So, then we're at the cocktail party. Time for the cocktail party before the rose ceremony.
There is one thing in between this. It just cuts to Colton showering. No dialogue. No, well, I can't think what's going to happen. It's just him showering for a second, which was still weird.
So many Colton shower
He just showers a lot, I think, and they showcase it.
So Courtney, we finally got to hear from. She's stunningly beautiful,
oh my God. By the way. Courtney. So she gets him, and she goes into her time. I wrote down, Courtney's trying to make the most out of her time. She talks a lot about leadership. It sounds like she's in a job interview. Keeps saying she's mature. Then says she's a soccer mom but doesn't have kids. Oh my God, stop Courtney. Courtney, stop talking. She's adorable, but damn, reel it in. I do like Courtney, though.
So I think that there's more to her story. It sounds like she is basically the mother figure for her 4 younger siblings.
Yeah.
So clearly there's something going on there, but she is talking about how she is young, but feels very mature because of the way that she had to grow up quickly. Right. So I actually thought that she did a great job of expressing to Colton what her life is like and why she's ready for what she's ready for now, or at least why she thinks she is.
I completely agree. She did a great job. Got really excited because it was probably her only real time with Colton yet. And she made her impression and did a good job. A little rambly, but it is good.
Yeah. So then, Sydney, there was a conversation with Nina, but I couldn't really catch it. Sydney says, this felt a little ironic, and we really liked Sydney a lot.
Yeah.
She said, he hasn't seen my deeper side and the reasons why I'm here. So then she goes to talk to him, and I'm like, oh, cool, yay, a deep conversation. I'm ready.
It was awkward.
And then they bond over cheating.
She admits she cheated a little bit to win one of the competitions. I think Colton appreciated her ingenuity and willingness to admit that she, pushed the other boat out of the way a little bit, because... And he even says, all's fair in love and war, kind of. Some version of that quote.
Yeah, which I get. It was a very interesting, and I'm sure it was part of the edit. Yeah. But, the edit between, he hasn't seen my deeper side yet, to, haha, I cheated during the rowing thing.
Right.
How is that?
Right. But her team didn't win, so she did have to go back to the mansion, so I feel like that's kind of an understandable, I I tried to cheat in one of the things we won.
But
I didn't
even
get
more
to win.
so than if you didn't get the time with him, wouldn't you want to share more things about you, not the fact that you cheated?
Right. I know what she was trying to do. She didn't do the best job of it. However, she is interrupted because Onyeka comes out with an air horn and blasts at him, which scares the shit out of Colton.
And me.
She seems a little off kilter and says she's horny, air quotes, podcast listeners, and then waves the air horn around. And it's like, and interrupts their date. Stacy's pissed.
Sydney.
She's real pissed. Sydney is real pissed. She goes and gets a sheet pan from the kitchen and a spoon and starts banging it at them saying, look, I'm making noise too. Which is a little childish. I mean, I get that you're annoyed that the person had an air horn, it was loud and startled you, but making more noise as a response is a little...
Here's the thing.
A little weird.
So if I'm the lead, right, if I'm the Bachelorette or the Bachelor, whatever, if I'm Colton, if I see two grown women,
oh God, yeah.
like, and very mature, beautiful, successful, like, Sydney's stunning, and Onyeka has an incredible story and is very close with her family, it seems.
It's pretty, yeah.
They were acting like 5-year-olds.
Yeah.
And that...
like fighting over a boy.
As the lead, I would not find that attractive. Not that I don't want to be fought over.
Right.
That's fine, but like...
fought over like adults.
But making noises like that?
I wrote, Colton doesn't seem stoked on because Sydney went back and got larger items to keep banging on because Onyeka, who interrupted their date, then refused to give up more time when Sydney tried to re-interrupt to get more time with Colton, which is kind of shitty to do if you interrupt somebody and then refuse to move after you've been interrupted. But Sydney gets larger and larger items to bang on.
Yeah.
Colton doesn't seem stoked on the item smashing, but he does seem to be enjoying it at the same time. Like, he's not stoked on the situation, but you can see there's a little bit of, like, childlike delight on his face. Like, they're really getting into it here. This is funny.
Yeah. And it was fine. So then there's this whole thing. Again, I really don't even want to give a lot of time to this.
No.
The Tracy Demi thing. Look, Tracy is clearly insecure about her age and who she is. Demi is overly secure and confident, almost to the point of showing like narcissistic tendencies. The two combined are a fucking nightmare, and they go on and just have an argument, and it doesn't...
Well, what I liked is that, so Demi pulls this thing where she tries to be as sexy as possible, and like gives Colton a back rub or something.
She wore a robe.
And tried to be like all sexy about it. Come to my fantasy closet, and then like, I don't know.
Tracy like breaks down.
Well, what's funny, the camera angle shows like, the manager from a distance, and you hear like moaning sounds, and Colton's like, ooh, wow, and she's like, you like this? And so, I wonder if like, she tried to flash him is what they were trying to imply, but then under her bathrobe, she was just wearing clothes.
No, she says, do you want to come home to this every day?
So I assume in that situation, she like showed him something revealing about her body, but you don't see it.
Him.
Right, and so she's wearing normal clothes underneath her bathrobe, so I feel kind of let down by the circumstances, but as she does this, she's leading upstairs in the bathrobe, trying to be this like baby sexy voice thing. Some girl who was not on camera goes, does she have parents? Like an unsupervised child was being ridiculous at an adult person's party. That's what she was pointed out as by one of the other contestants, and I thought that was spot on. Whoever says that, I applaud.
Yeah, it was really funny.
Does she have parents?
Then there was this weird moment where Elise calls... Instead of saying rock, paper, scissors, she's like, well, we need to play paper, rock, scissors.
That is not what it's called.
It was very confusing. Then Demi has like 10 limes in her wine glass. I wasn't sure what she was drinking. I was very confused. I was like, do you need more fruit?
So Tracy sits down, or Demi goes to Tracy.
Wait, we're actually going to talk about that?
I guess not. I mean, long story short, Tracy shares that she's hurt. Demi mocks her kind of openly.
Yeah.
And says, you're an amazing storyteller, and he's going to like that. Like, what the fuck is that?
It's just not worth.
Yeah, so are we ready for the roses?
Yeah, so going into the rose ceremony, Hannah B., Elise, and Heather are the 3 people who got roses throughout the week.
Yep.
And then Colton hands out roses to...
Okay.
Tasha, Cassie, Kaylin, Courtney, Demi, Nicole, Kirpa, Hannah G., Catherine, Bree, Sydney, Onyeka, Katie, Caitlin, Nina, and Tracy. So the 3 people who went home are Alex, Annie, who I literally did not know who that was.
That was the woman that I thought was named Henny on the first
Annie.
episode.
We couldn't figure it out.
Like Innie? But it turned out it's Annie.
It's Annie.
And
she went home.
And
Angelique went home also.
Angelique also went home. So Annie does the funny thing. It's the second episode. She's going home on night 2. She says she has her heart ripped out, and this is so embarrassing. Is it so embarrassing that you went home on night 2, or is it more embarrassing that you're having a breakdown on national television about a guy you don't know? I feel like that's the embarrassing thing, and you're making it worse by doing the things you're doing. It
was not great. And then the last clip of the entire episode I actually thought was funnier than the entire date with Megan Mullally and Nick Offerman.
Yeah.
They were hilarious.
Nick Offerman makes some good touchdown dance jokes in relation to him having a touchdown with a lady.
It was
and how they planned it.
Hilarious. It was really funny. So, okay, let's just briefly, now that we've recapped, we just briefly want to talk about some actual mental health stuff in relationship to Demi, and then we're just going to talk about what we're looking forward to and our predictions very quickly. We'll wrap it up in the next 10 minutes here. So, mental health thoughts on Demi. Now, I want to preface this with, we do not know these people. We are getting an edit from a production team, and there's no way on this planet that I would sit here and try to diagnose someone from a reality TV show, ever. Yeah. So I just want to preface it with that, because as we talk about this, I do not want anybody to be like, I heard this therapist say that she's that.
These are all opinions.
So Demi is very dangerous.
She's the worst.
And she gives me the feeling in the pit of my stomach that I get when I know that somebody is very unstable. And I don't mean that in a judgmental way. I mean that in a clinical way. I question the show's screening of Demi. They are so careful when it comes to physical stuff. Did you guys know that the number one reason why people get rejected from being on The Bachelor is for having herpes? And that most of the time they don't even know that they have it. Wow. Because over 70% of the population has some form of herpes. And most of us don't know. So they won't let someone on that has herpes. But they will let someone like Demi on who is causing serious psychological distress to other people in the house.
It's the fact that she goes out of her way to be antagonistic and manipulative to other people on the show.
And she's aware of it.
Oh, it's very, very intentional. Yeah. Her, in the moments, you can see she's very clearly being egged on by a producer. They're asking her all the right questions to get her very riled up. And then as soon as she is all riled up, they seem to release her back on the girls. And the production team seems to be very encouraging of her to be the worst version of herself, which she believes is the best version of herself.
So there's a line between the villain on The Bachelor and like good TV and the woman who causes some drama and having someone who is psychologically unstable and needs support with their mental health. And I think that Demi does need support with her mental health. And I don't think that it was a responsible decision of the show to cast her.
Yeah, she seems to be picking out as often as she can. She will try to find the things that women are most worried about and start poking at them. Age, she seems to be the thing that she's most focused on.
Was the easiest.
Right. I find, so, very clearly she's ageist. In a lot of her segments, she is age-shaming the other women for being over the age of 30 or over the age of 23, it seems to be like, at every possible standpoint. And paired with the baby voice and the way she carries herself around and openly shit talks other people in the same room, it just goes to show for me that she's got a lot of stuff going on mentally and emotionally that is, I think that you picked a good word, dangerous to be around.
She's dangerous.
Yeah.
So I'm concerned to see how this plays out for her.
We'll see.
But
We'll see.
Yeah.
I don't
Okay.
care for her.
Predictions and what we're looking forward to for the season.
Holy shit. I don't even know at this point.
So I don't want to make any predictions about who he's going to choose because I don't think that we have enough data to do that yet.
Well, then I have a question for you.
Okay.
Both the Hannahs. We can't have two Hannahs in the final 5. Which Hannah makes it? G or B?
G is...
First Impression Rose.
Yeah, her.
B is Miss Alabama.
Yeah, First Impression Rose.
You think so?
I do. I think the First Impression Rose Hannah will go further than Alabama Hannah.
I think the opposite. I think so because First Impression Rose, I think that Chris Harrison fucked her over big time by saying that she had the target on her. She got into her own head as a result of it. She came off awkward in her first time speech as a result of it. And is probably withdrawing a little bit because she doesn't know how to be a target in a group of women because she's not, but everyone says she is now. And I think that Hannah B's emotional time with Colton, struggling on that first date, will give them an emotional tie that will pay off for her later on in the show.
Interesting.
That's my thought.
Interesting. Okay, I'm going to stick with mine. We'll see.
What do you think, audience?
Yeah, let us know which Hannah's going to make it. I think that we have not seen a lot from Cassie, who I think is going to go far.
Yeah, she wasn't really on this last one.
I think that we've not seen a lot from Tasha, who I think is going to go far.
Yep.
I think
Sydney's going to go far too. If she gets more time and calms down and doesn't bang stuff around anymore, I think she'll be okay. If you're a fan of Big Brother, it reminds me of Josh.
Oh, the banging shit? Yeah. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, pick you back up for a second.
Yeah. I think that's all I have for right now.
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited. I'm excited for next week's episode. We will be doing a special episode next week. We will be coming to you live on the night of the show.
Can you believe that?
I know. We're actually going to be in Florida for a wedding, and so we'll be flying on an airplane when we would normally be live. So we are going to watch the show and literally go live right afterwards to talk about it with you guys. So be sure to set an alert for that. And that's why we want you guys to subscribe to the channel, subscribe to the podcast, so that anytime we do an episode or a show that is not on our regularly scheduled time, you're sure not to miss anything.
Absolutely. And if you're listening to the podcast, I cut you off.
It's okay.
And if you're listening to the podcast, we would love if you give a review, rating, and subscribe to our podcast channel because we love doing this.
Yeah, we really do.
And it goes a mile for us.
So thank you guys for joining us for our 3rd episode of The Wright Reasons. If you have any questions or things that you would like us to go deeper into, we would love to know. Also, we're going to start asking some of Bachelor Nation to come on our podcast and our live YouTube show. So we would love to know from you, who would you love to see on our show? I know I really want Ben Higgins on, I want Nick Viall on, and I want Michael Garafola on. Those are my top 3 picks. What about you? I know I'm putting you on the spot.
Especially because I don't really know as many of the Bachelor people as you. Well, obviously, Nick and Ben are like the 2 probably most well-known guys from the show, I think, at this point. So it would be good. Tentatively, the most well-known. I would actually, I would love to be able to talk to Chris Harrison about this show. He's probably the most difficult person to get access to because he is Chris Harrison of The Bachelor, but I think that he would have a very interesting perspective if he's willing to share it on how the show is put together.
And I would love to have some of the women from this season on to talk about the experience through the lens of healthy relationships and mental health and sex.
That's true. We could actually, hey, if Sydney ever comes across this episode or this show, we also live in New York.
It's true.
Call us.
All right, you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next week. Next week, remember, is Monday night.
Special episode.
And thanks for hanging.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.